So thank you for inviting me, and thank you in particular to Ángeles, Aurelio, and Ruben, who have made this thing possible. Actually, today, Alicante must be one of the cities with the highest percentage of the data protection officers per square meter, because we are convening in EUIPO the data protection officers of the EU institutions and bodies of the European Union. So it was a total coincidence that when I got your invitation, I was scheduled to come here. So I said, great. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult for me to come. But so now that I'm here, I would like to talk to you a little bit about two topics. And I will be brief, so we can also have some time for a little bit of debate, because I think on these issues, the questions are, at this point, more important than the answers, I think. And as we have Manuel with us, with a long experience on European matters, I would really feel very honored, Manuel, if afterwards you can also share with all of us your vision about how we should go on this topic of artificial intelligence and the metaverse. So I know that the Metaverse Cátedra would like me to talk a lot about the metaverse, but I will focus mainly on AI for two reasons. First, because the metaverse is not hot news as the AI is nowadays. I think the progress with the metaverse is much slower, so we will have plenty of opportunity to talk about metaverse and legal implications and everything. And second, because I think the metaverse at this point is not fully equipped, let's say, legally speaking, to have a proper uptake. Therefore, I would prefer to focus on the AI. But I will say a few words about the metaverse first from the data protection viewpoint, and then we will move to AI. This idea of the metaverse-like scenarios, which unfortunately had been kind of monopolized by one private company that even gave the name to the universe, is very problematic from the data protection viewpoint. Very, very problematic. We cannot lie about this. Why? Because the nature of the replicating the real world in a digital world is based on a massive collection of personal data in a very, very intrusive way. So you are all familiar how this works. So they are supposed to replicate all your movements, all your attitudes, behaviors, and even they can go as far as in the not so distant future, they will also try to read your mind and transport the readings of your mind to the metaverse. For example, if you're thinking about moving in that direction, I think it is already possible to read the brain, the human brain, and translate it. So this all has a huge potential for the future, but unfortunately, the companies developing these applications have not fully grasped the consequences that these have from the perspective of the protection of privacy for individuals. So there is also the problem that all this data that will be collected in principle only for replicating the real world in the metaverse, all this data might be used for completely different purposes. And some of these purposes could be very interesting for these companies. And once there is, we know from experience that once there is an opportunity and the possibility of making money, then the risk comes immediately. So my conclusion is that as many of these data can be categorized as biometric data, because can uniquely identify a human being, the way you walk, for example, is unique to you. It's going to be really, really difficult to provide for adequate legal basis for all this massive processing of personal data. Welcome. My right hand, my advisor, Sonia Perez, just arrived, so I'm very happy to see her. You're coming from Brussels, right? Yeah. Okay. So it's going to be very difficult to find all this legal basis. And that's why in one of the tweets I will be publishing today about this speech, I'm going to say that I think with the poor level of compliance that big tech companies have at this point in time of the principle of privacy by design and by default, thinking of metaverse scenarios is not very realistic. So these big tech companies will need to really improve substantially their investments on privacy by design to be able to roll out successfully metaverse scenarios. I'm sorry to be so negative about it, but I'm always very positive about technology, and I always try to find ways to solve problems. But in this particular case, as the situation stands, I think we have a big problem, and the problem can only be solved once these companies really understand that they need to take data protection and privacy more seriously. At the moment, these companies are challenging in the European Court of Justice the decisions adopted by data protection authorities about them. And at the moment, they are challenging the huge millionaire fines that they got. So this is not necessarily the best approach to interiorize data protection practices. So far from Metaverse, we can discuss more about it. If you want, we can discuss about more concrete details, but let me move now to the more, I think, exciting world of AI, because I don't know if you know that the European Data Protection Supervisor is being proposed by the legislator as the European regulatory authority on AI. So I'm very excited about it because I've been doing data protection for almost 25 years now. So I'm a little bit tired of data protection by now, as you can imagine. So having a new challenge, AI, a new field, makes me very happy because I can set up new things and start working. So that's why we are now investing a lot in understanding AI, in understanding how this new world of AI will look like. And I would like to tell you a few things about it, quite pedagogical things. I will not be very revolutionary in what I will say, but probably will help you to understand the kind of crossroads we are at this point in the regulation of AI. We have all woken up overnight to these new massive language models or generative AI that is dominating the news today. So the promise of all these technologies is simply fascinating. And I guess most of you have been already playing with it, with ChatGPT and things like that, and it's really, really amazing. So our attitude towards this is far away from a technophobic approach. We think this technology has huge potentials and we should embrace the potentials of this technology. But at the same time, we need to understand that there are some risks that we will need to address. So probably you also saw that Elon Musk published a letter with some technological leaders asking for a 6 months ban on AI development, which quite frankly puzzled me a lot. First of all, because 6 months is nothing. So 6 months pass by so quickly that is not realistically. But more importantly, because it is not realistic to stop the development of new technology. That's really, you cannot do. So you may, for example, do no proliferation of nuclear weapons. Yeah, that you could do, because you cannot go and get centrifuges for nuclear creating uranium and things like that in a supermarket. But anybody can go to a MediaMarkt, buy some stuff, graphical cards, download some libraries from the internet, and start doing AI. And thousands of people are doing it as we speak. So how are we supposed to stop that? We cannot. We cannot. So this looks a little bit more like trade wars or commercial interests, where some people probably are lagging behind, and then they are not interested in things go too quick because they cannot catch up with whatever is happening. So this looks to me like this, but you never know. There's also that we have to differentiate, I think, between banning the development of the technology from banning some uses of the technology. The development you cannot stop, some uses you could. And that's precisely what the proposal of the European Commission on an AI regulation is trying to achieve, to identify AI scenarios with different levels of risks. So there will be low-level risks where, quite frankly, a little bit of transparency is enough. Then you would have more average risks where the requirements of transparency will need higher. Then there will start to be some scrutiny also by the auditors. Then you will have high-level risks where actually you will have to be extremely careful, and then you will have to have extreme security measures, because then the risk for people getting harmed is too high. And then you have a little percentage at the peak of the pyramid where society believes this cannot be done. This use of AI technology is prohibited. And this is already in the proposal, in the Commission proposal. There is some issues that we have already considered that they are too bad, and then AI technologies cannot be done. So we're talking about social scoring, which is something that they are already doing in China, but we don't want to do in the European Union. And we are also prohibiting using the vulnerabilities of people against them, because, you know, it's the machine exploiting you, let's say. And also from the EDPS, we have called for a ban on the use of AI technology for instant face recognition in public spaces, because we think this is moving immediately to 1984 Orwell scenarios, where the anonymity of us as human beings will be totally destroyed. But there will be probably in the future other uses of technology that will be really, really bad, that it will be necessary to stop. Because as our former supervisor, Giovanni Buttarelli, liked to say, not everything that is technically possible should be allowed, and not everything that is even legal should be deployed, because there are deep ethical considerations to take into account. So there are some things in the letter from Elon Musk I think I can agree with. And this concern that they express about not having ethical deployments of the technology, that I think I can share. But the way they have framed this concern is a little bit too vague, because the truth is that for every technology, there is always potential good and bad use. And this is not new from AI. Huh? So the same powder that you use in queries to get stones, then it is used in weapons. You cannot prohibit powder. I mean, it's impossible. So gunpowder is used for guns, but it's also used for other uses. The same can be said for AI. So it could be used for content moderation in social media, super helpful, or it could be used to squeeze people and discriminate against minorities. So that's what I said, this technophobic approach is not the right way. The right way is obviously to establish some principles, some rules of the game, and then look at each and every case, and then balance the different interests at stake, the risk, the safeguards, and taking decisions. Decisions that cannot be taken by the inspectors. Decisions should be taken first by those who are deploying the technology. And only in some cases, the inspectors can come and give a view about it, because, I mean, we are the data protection authorities today, and we cannot be validating every single processing that is done in the world. This is the role of the data protection officers, of the controllers, and only in very exceptional cases we are involved. So the same for AI, where obviously there are always a data protection element, obviously, and high risks AI will always need a data protection impact assessment, because there will be high risk also for the data involved. This is clear. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about this ChatGPT thing, how it works, because apart from the amazement, there are a few things that are not that special. So it's like a magical trick. Wow. But then when you look at it, they say, but there was a man behind. So it's not so amazing. So actually, this technology is focused almost exclusively on replicating the way that we humans speak. That's the main purpose. So to sound like a human being speaking. But these systems do not learn from speaking as we do. So it's not that if we speak about sports, I learn about sports. The machine will never become an expert on what he's speaking, because it's only replicating the way we speak, but it's not learning. And also has no way to know whether or not some information is reliable. Something that we human beings, we can't do, because on the basis of our experience. So actually this learning of the substance, let's say, is like some kind of sub-product of AI that is not ready yet. So you can say these are like very sophisticated parrots, that they hear things and they repeat, and they do it with a huge level of sophistication. So it looks like a human being speaking, but in fact, we are very far from a human being speaking. And the problematic part of it is that in order to be able to do that, they need to scrap huge amount of data from many places, because this is only by reading this data that they can mimic the way we speak. And they can take the information from the website of the Bank of Spain, or they can take the information from the latest tweet from Mr. Trump. And they put it together. And therefore, the result looks good. They sell it in a way that it looks like, wow, but when you go deep inside, it's faulty. Now, There is also the problem that these systems have some difficulties to deal with irony, sarcasm, exaggeration, something that is very human. And it's true that there are some language parameters that you can associate with it, but often they missed the ironical part, which is probably the most intelligent part of the whole thing. So there is still a long way, so they can be really, really reliable, and also they have huge difficulties to understand cultural differences. It's not the same Polish person speaking with a huge background from this country that someone from Greece. These things we humans, we can feel, the machine still cannot. However, this is going to be a reality very soon because it kind of works, right? So for very basic stuff, they can replace people with these machines, because if you get to, if you need customer support or you need to check in, actually the number of variables is quite limited, and then they can start replacing people by these machines quite successfully, so they can save a lot of money. And when you see something saving money, you can see everybody going for it. So we don't know how far the uptake will be, but we will soon be seeing AI all aboard, all places. And the impact that these systems may have on real human beings could be huge, because they will be taking decisions. And if you think about replacing decision-making in fields like police investigations, exams in the university, recruitment decisions, credit scoring, all these things, this is quite scary. So the question here is that we need to ensure sufficient transparency. That's the key word, transparency. So we can look inside the AI and inside the algorithm and inside the data, and then make an assessment about the level of reliability of the thing. Obviously, the risk-based approach, which comes already from the GDPR, should be in place. So transparency should be higher for more risky operations than for non-risky operations. And obviously, transparency needs to find some balance with IP rights as well, because otherwise you destroy the foundations of intellectual property, which is very important in the capitalist world we are living. And obviously, transparency doesn't mean that these companies need to release, to make everything public, only what is necessary to assess what we are trying to assess. It's like the analogy with product manufacturing today. Nobody still knows the recipe of the Coca-Cola, right? And that doesn't mean that Coca-Cola cannot be sold, but you have some labels with information about the product. So more or less something similar will need to be figured out for AI. And also, very importantly, something that is not happening today is that the machine needs to tell you, I'm not a human. Actually, my daughter has had lots of problems over the past weekend because she lost her phone, and technical issues. So all the previous conversations in WhatsApp have been lost. Big drama for her. She's not grown up, but still, all her life was there, right? And pictures and everything. So we started contacting WhatsApp, and I got a chatbot. I know it was a chatbot. It was not any person in WhatsApp, but I was never told that it was a chatbot. They wanted me to believe that I was talking to a real employee in WhatsApp, and that's not right, because I really wanted to talk to someone, not to a chatbot. So this is something that we will need to have in place soon. And obviously, we will have to properly regulate how things in the world of AI are being done. So I don't know if you're familiar with the way that these machines work, but basically what you do is that you give a task to the program, and you give some data to the program, and the program starts learning and improving until a point that you say. So you say, for example, I want to do age recognition, right? So I want to know what is the approximate age of a picture of this person. So you tell the machine, look, go there to this database, start examining the pictures. We already know the age, and then learn from it until a point where you can ascertain with 95% of reliability the age of one person, and then the machine will do it until the point that, boom, now I have learned how to calculate the age of an image. And this is, let's say, what AI does. And the purposes are generally very broad. Now, what they do is that on the basis of these pre-trained models, they use it like Lego, and they start putting on top of these other things and putting new data together, and then this becomes very sophisticated. And the problem we have when we were preparing the proposal on AI in the European Union is that we were focusing on high risk parts of the Lego without noticing that there is also big risks in the pre-trained models. Because if the pre-trained models are not sufficiently transparent, how can you be sure that in the last part of the Lego, you're doing the right thing? And the problem is that most of these pre-trained models that have been done in the past have not been done with sufficient transparency requirements. So there is no proper documentation there where you can go and check. So we need to start really changing the mindset and doing things much more transparently. Otherwise, the whole system will collapse because there will be no real reliability achieved. Now, talking about reliability, there is another element which I'm sure you will be aware with, which is the fact that these large language models start to hallucinate. It's fascinating. They start to say things that are like hallucination, like if they were in drugs. And nobody really understands what's going on there, but sometimes you ask them, I don't know, who's the head of department in the university, and then they will start mixing information and then appointing different heads of departments and doing things. Why is that? Well, because they, as we said at the beginning, they are not smart. They are just taking the information from their sources. And as the internet is so full of this information and fake news, it's only normal that they hallucinate. And so we will have to start cleaning the internet a little bit to be able to rely on the internet for AI, and this is going to be a huge task. And if you look at the ChatGPT, which is Microsoft, I think they have a good practice, because when they give you the result, they will tell you the sources they use to give you the result, which is quite transparent. But in many places, you cannot see that. And this is, and then taking us to the last part, is the issue of the explainability of AI, which is super important. And explainability, not only about the algorithm, which is the way normally it has been seen, but also explainability about the data being used for the algorithm, which is something that companies don't want to do because often they have no good practices for accessing all this data because data protection is very complex. So they are happy to show you the algorithm, but not the data they have shown. So once again, we need to do better in data protection in order to have AI rolling. I don't know if you heard that in this ChatGPT, someone asked ChatGPT to write a poem about Joe Biden, and then a laudatory poem was done, and then immediately asked, write me now a poem about Donald Trump, and the system refused. Why? Because obviously someone has coded there that Donald Trump has some problems. And but of course, this is a huge problem because, I mean, the impact in terms of democracy and freedom and things like that. So how to solve this issue? Difficult to see a quick solution now. Our little contribution from the EDPS will be a workshop we will organize in Lyon. It will be hybrid, so you don't need to go to Lyon if you want to participate. You can follow online on the 30th. Is it 30th or the 31st of May? Let me check. 31st of May. And there we will have a few experts on explainable AI, try to tell us a little bit how are the prospects here. This is in the context of an initiative that we have in the EDPS, which is called IPEN, which is a way of gathering engineers working on data protection and privacy. So we organize events to put them together, so establish networks. Pretty much what you are doing here today, but with the engineers working on data protection. So I invite you to attend if you want, and if someone would really like to come physically to Lyon, I will be there. So two final messages, and then I think we can move to the most important part, which is the debate. So I cannot emphasize enough the importance of agreeing internationally on some technical standards. I'm not calling here now at this stage for an international convention on AI, but I think it's absolutely essential that we agree with like-minded democracies around the world on a rule book of technical standards, things that we can all agree on that are the difference between democratic use of a technology, things that are not compatible with a rule of law democratic system. I think this should be absolutely essential because otherwise we will fail with the uptake of AI. You are all probably aware of the Schrems case law and the disputes between the European Union and the United States about data protection. We cannot afford to have this for AI regulation. We have to do smarter than this. And we will also need to ensure good compatibility between AI regulation and the GDPR. And this is not going to be easy because there's some people in the data protection community that still have some technophobic approach. And we have to find a way to make these both compatible. That's why I think it is super smart that the European Union has decided to give the EDPS also the AI competence, because we will have to find a way to have both parts of the house working together, and the data protection experts and the AI experts. Unfortunately, the situation in terms of governance is not good. There will be no European agency on AI. It will only be the EDPS in charge of EU institutions and bodies, which is not the same. And there is not even agreement on who should do the supervision of AI at national level. So in some cases, it will be data protection authorities, in other cases, it will be industry agencies. So the governance is poor. So this is not the best recipe to do things. It's what I often call the cost of non-Europe. This is a good example. No? So I think I should stop here now and invite first Manuel to put a footnote and then open the floor to everybody. Please, Manuel. My challenge is not me. That's I think more and more of data application. And I try to talk in text with saying that priority and priorities. And then I'm lost. I would like to. Right. We actually we can I can confess that we can approach push out from the I wonder how actually smooth because actually here and a few half thousand of but history when my was very annoying. It's hard to say now. Yellow pages. The people are with yellow pages. Even existing. Anyway, I acknowledge that protection, all that protection is one of our main partners. And for but if I approach, so this could be a from the perspective of something global now. Getting about 70 years back, the global population, 6% population, we have high importance from the United States and China, and what is behind it's not the fact that we are polar and middle and so the understanding is that you're talking about the democratic values that are being more than 100 learn that when I'm being when I think 50%. Then when I approach the matter from Chinese culture, what I found that is a collapse of culture. Two cultures were and you back that didn't go to each other, just relying commercial line back and forth. Never try to understand
we always know that. And the crucial matter from the perspective, the issue of data protection is not the value as really the individual value is the screen.
Freedom.
Then when you say, oh, yeah, give me back already, think in terms of we need an international convention. But for me, convention is a worldwide convention does not work. When you say, well, should we move into brackets? Should we move into an international convention where all the democratic countries will join? Then we need more. We need, I should say, 3/5 of the population out of this convention. What is what we're going to achieve if we continue just putting us the priority, thinking in a worldwide perspective? Our main value that in this case is protect freedom. Personal data. And sorry, Leonardo, because I guess that this is this problem you have again and again and again.
Yeah.
We need everything. Verify people on the basis. And this is an issue which we
absolutely.
If this is a war, and at the end of the picture, what I have is that I only can use war, and the other ones come with missiles and with tanks, then my time is over, completely over. We switch speaking, by the way. So this is an issue where the European Commission should explain us really where do we go, and if what we propose at the end is that no, our data protection policy and our intention is to, what we intend is to bring these worldwide and that everybody who does. What I see, unfortunately, is that it is the other way around. In a time, one generation, 4 piece of the population, of the whole population, not and it is not the Atlantic foreign sun, it's the Pacific sun. And this is a discussion in a way or another. No stuff, but you ask me to go.
And I'm very happy.
Because all in all the rest.
Yeah. You're Manuel, you're talking more like you're talking more like a philosopher today than a lawyer, which I really appreciate because it is your wisdom after so many years that we have to bring. And I think European institutions, we need to leave our crystal tower, and we need to go to the society, and we need to expose ourselves also to the criticism of academia, because one of the things of academia is that you speak freely, you have no political commandments, and so I really welcome all the things that you said. I think I will tell you what I think, and then please others follow in the debate. I think we have to fight 100%, no compromise, tyranny. No, we should never tolerate tyranny. This is what makes us Europeans, even from the times of the Greeks, when the Greeks said, the Persians are tyrants, we are not. It's our most deepest European thing. We have to fight against tyranny. And therefore, I don't think we should compromise on this. And we should not try to negotiate with tyrants. I think tyrants, we should persuade them to not be tyrants. And if they don't come, we should not negotiate with that. I think this is the first thing. The second thing is that the point you're making is, yeah, this is all very dignified. So you're going to have AI with a lot of difficulties. So the data protection hurdles, human considerations, and then in the meantime, the Chinese, with these constraints, they will advance very quickly, and then, poof, they will put us for breakfast one day, right? That's basically what you're saying.
This is what I'm challenging you.
Yes.
You think this is what should happen?
Yeah, I understand. Yes, exactly. So, and I think this is a very good challenge. And on this, I will not deny that we are in a competitive race. So we need to compete with this, let's say China, no problem. But then my answer there would be the analogy of the Waterloo battle. You know, but if you ever come to Brussels, please visit the Waterloo battlefield, which is 15 minutes away from the European neighborhood in Brussels. And it's fascinating. I don't know if you've been there, but it's really worth a visit. And so in the Waterloo battle, you have two armies and two generals. You had the French army, which was more numerous, better equipped, more trained than the Anglo-Dutch, German army that was commanded by Wellington. So they were less experience, less cannons, less everything. So the French army was better, and then you could say the Chinese army will be better. Okay, I concede that. And then the generals, Napoleon was better, by far. We know that the experience of Napoleon winning wars cannot be compared with Wellington, and Wellington himself, he admitted that Napoleon had more experience. But nevertheless, Wellington won the day. Why? Because he chose the battlefield. He chose where the battle will take place. He had been recognizing the area for years because he knew there would be one day there would come a battle. And then he had already walked around Waterloo area, and he knew pretty well the battlefield. So he knew exactly where to put the different pieces of their army, and he won the battle because he chose the battlefield suiting his skills and his army. So I would say we have to do exactly the same. We have to pick up our own battlefield here. We should not compete in terms of saving costs, in terms of screwing employees and things like that. Our battlefield should be the one where things like democracy, values, respect for human beings is the landscape. There, I think we have a chance. I think any other people coming to this battlefield will lose. And this is what we often call in the Brussels effect. So we go there, we make our proposal, we set up the battlefield, and we allow them to come and fight us in our own terms. And I think with the GDPR is such a great example. It's often mentioned like the best example of the Brussels effect, because when the proposal was made, I think there was only 40 or 50 nations with data protection laws, most of them European and Ibero-American. And now, 5 years later, it's 156 nations with laws inspired on the GDPR. And now it's a standard. So if the Chinese don't want to play the GDPR, they will have tremendous difficulties to bring products to the European Union. It's clear. So I think with the AI, we should do the same. But we should be smarter than with data protection. We should really agree with like-minded countries, democracies, common standards, because that would make us stronger, even stronger. So I think with the US to start with, and then with other countries. So that's why I emphasize we need to agree on some standards, because I think the American law and us, European law, when coming to basic principles, is pretty similar. The fight, I mean, we will not allow discrimination, or we will not, well, we call it different ways. They call it amendments to the Constitution. We call it fundamental rights, but at the end of the day, it's the same. So that would be my plea, that we try to be smarter and then embrace the other democracies and be a little bit flexible and find a common position, and then let's have the Brussels-Washington effect on AI. And that, I think, in that battlefield, we will be invincible, I think. So who else would like to take the floor and please?
Innovation first. For example.
Sorry? Yeah.
For you, because I that AI invites very rich. For example, for mental children. So, what do you think? You see, I don't think that's regulation.
Yeah, you're calling for a holistic approach here, I think, which is very wise indeed. So yesterday, I had the immense honor and pleasure of participating in a completely different event in Seville, in the Andalusian Parliament, and they invited me to talk on the topic of protection of children against pornography. You see, I have to change my mindset from one day to the other, but I went there because I am I'm really disappointed about how we failed our children when protecting them, really, in the internet, in particular with the pornography. It's a shame, really. It's a real shame. So I went there to say, look, data protection should not be an obstacle for doing the right thing here. We engage to find solutions that are data protection friendly, but something needs to be done to better protect our children, because often it is said, we cannot do things because of data protection. You know, it's a perfect excuse not to do things. And I demonstrated that there are privacy-friendly solutions that work pretty well to protect children. So there, we had, it was a whole day with experts, impressive level that they did in the Andalusian Parliament, chapeau. And one of the experts came with statistics about video games and the use of video games by kids. And it turns out that the video game called GTA is being used regularly by like 60 or 70% of the kids, like several hours per week. And Grand Theft Auto, which I think is now number 5 or 6, is about killing other people, and is about taking some rest by going with a prostitute and things like that. And this is the kind of environment our kids are playing with. So this isn't all right. This isn't all right. There, I would say, if you put on top artificial intelligence that is able to manipulate the kids to make them, for example, more addictive to GTA, I think this is high risk for society. I fully agree with you. So it's probably not the kind of high risk we were thinking of, but there is a high risk. And we had a lot of discussions about it. So what we have, as a society, we need to start realizing that we have to do the right thing here. And we should not be afraid of taking actions when necessary. And access to pornographic websites, for example. How is it possible that when you try to have access to the live streaming of a singer, if you have not paid the ticket, you are cut down immediately? But then kids can have access to all kind of pornographic material and nobody's doing anything about it. The same thing that it is used to cut down us trying to get access to this concert can be used to cut down kids trying to get access to adult material, right? So we have to do better. I'm totally with you. So I think we should really do what you're kind of hinting, some kind of holistic approach to identifying high risks and then having the right authorities with the right resources looking at these things. And when you see that someone is doing not okay, ban and take action. Ruben, please. Yeah. 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 Okay, extremely valid point. I agree with you. The good news is that I think things are improving, really. The proposal on AI, for example, I think is from mid-2021, and it looks like we will have the text politically adopted by the end of this year. So it will only be a couple of years, I think, which is good enough. And we have also had other pieces of legislation adopted recently, Digital Market Act, Digital Service Act, that have been. So I think there is hope there that we are doing better, at least with this parliament. Let's see what happens with the new parliament. If it's too Eurosceptic, maybe it will not be possible. And yesterday, and with this I conclude, I saw something apart from Manuel talking about European values, which gave me a lot of pleasure. I saw something on the social media that apparently there is now 7 countries, including Spain, which makes me very proud, that are asking for the abolition of unanimity in foreign affair policy, which is amazing. I mean, it's Germany, Spain, I think several countries. So that also gives me hope, because if we go to qualified majority for this kind of decisions, we're going to go much faster and taking the right thing. So I think there is hope, but still a lot of work to do. So thank you so much for inviting me, for your attention.